Welcome back to another episode of the Marketing Quacks podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Dozer, and this week I'm excited to be joined by CEO and founder of EVOKE Experiences, Oana Borcoman. Oana, thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so Juana and I have worked together on a particular client, and she's very good at what she does. So why don't you just dive in and just tell the audience or listeners, what you do, the value that you can provide for business owners, clients, and just kind of dive into your everyday.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my agency focuses on experience driven marketing. So, in all the different marketing segments, obviously you focus mostly on digital. We focus on the experience that someone has with your brand. And we do that in a variety of different ways. A lot of that is visual. So, branding is a huge component of it. But once that's established, how do you bring out emotions, evoke emotions in people in a variety of ways and really reach them on a deeper personal level? So, we do that through a couple of different strategies, one being promotional products and gifting, one being brand activations and events, another being just a general customer experience strategy. But we like to really dive in and work with the business and all segments of marketing they work with to really find exactly what works and fits for their brand because it's different for B2C and B2B.
Exactly. Yeah, and you're very good at what you do. I didn't talk about that at the very beginning of the episode either. I should have mentioned that. So, we work together on a cash-based medical client, and I'm curious to hear more about the event side, just kind of selfishly. What does that look like if someone wants to work with you and they have a conference booth or they're set up at a conference and they need help with marketing? Kind of talk about that.
Yeah, so events are a pretty broad thing to say, right? There's event planners who just plan the logistics. We are more of a strategist, I would say, because we really look at what your end goal is for your business. And sometimes the event is a strategy, but sometimes it's not. So we always ask, why are you doing this? And if you don't know why, then we first have to establish the why. Are you trying to grow awareness? Are you trying to get new leads? Things like that. So when we work with customers on events, we establish the why and then we talk about the strategy and then we go into planning the event and then we only do kind of really creative, higher end, boutique. I call them boutique events. Not that doesn't mean every event is expensive. That just means it's not your traditional approach to events. So you brought up conferences. We do not plan the large conferences or the trade shows. So there are other companies that specialize at that. We do plan the experience someone might have in your booth. And so we again go back to that strategy. What are you trying to accomplish in your booth? We also
Yeah, you Oh no, go ahead. I was just going to say you'd be amazed how many companies, just spend thousands and dollars at a conference booth, but have zero strategy. They think that just showing up, they're just going to hard sell people. So explain that, why that won't work without a strategy.
Well, because there's always someone who has more money than you. There is always someone who will have a more attractive booth. So unless you have an unlimited budget and you have the largest booth space and you do this incredible build out that someone will absolutely come to, you have to have a way to draw people in. If you don't have a way to draw people in, then they're not going to come. If you have them drawn in and you don't know what to talk to them about, what to do with them, then they're going to leave and not have an impression. They're not going to remember you. You want them to remember you when they leave. And then if they come and they remember you, but you didn't capture their information and you have no way of knowing who came to your booth, that was all a waste of money and effort, right? So all of those things need to be considered because otherwise, what's the point? And we approach everything with what's the point? Why are you doing this? And so we don't always just come in and plan your event. And actually, sometimes we come in and we're like, we don't think you should do that event. Why don't we look at this instead as a strategy?
That's a good idea. So it's more consulting too on that side. So I can't tell you how many times I've been to a marketing conference and you have all these booths. Those are the people I actually avoid when they come up to me and they try to sell me something. I'm like, I just turn my head the other way and I'm like, nope, on to the next one, right? So I'm glad you talked about that. So what's your selling point then? Why should someone choose EVOKE Experiences over your competition?
Yeah, so we're not just the planner. We're not just the consultant. We're not just the creative. We do a little bit of everything. And I don't know a whole lot of agencies that have both the business minded growth perspective and the lens of how do we help you grow and help your bottom line, as well as how do we do that in a creative, impactful, and memorable way. And so that's how we approach everything. But we also just really get into your business. And we learn it so well with a very low point of entry. we don't require a huge commitment up front. I mean, you can call us just to order promo items for your conference booth, or you can call us just to get some employee gifts. And with everything we do with you, we're just as committed and dedicated into learning about your business. And so then we like the slow growth. We like the relationship aspect of it. So you don't have to come to us and say, oh, we need someone who can run our entire marketing department. We don't even want that right away because we don't know if we're a fit. We don't know if we're
Right.
going to like working with you yet. And if you're going to like us, because we're not for everybody. We challenge our customers. We ask why. We point out things that aren't working. And not everybody wants that. But to me, that's the value that we provide. And we think about your sales team. We think about the execution on things. We think about your customer. It's not a one size fits all. Do you work with foreigners? Do you work with older people? Do you work with blue collar, white collar? Like, who do you work with? Who are you drawing in? And sometimes the people you're targeting are very different than the people who are actually working inside your building. So working with the HR department might be very different than working with the business development department. So we really take all of that into account. And we're not just a traditional event planning or marketing company.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up. And that's one thing I really respect about you and the work that you do is you're more business focused too, because there's a lot of branding agencies out there where they'll just design and they'll just focus on the brand work, but on the back end they don't think of the ROI. What is someone paying me for this brand work, and what will it return? So I appreciate you talking about that, because that's what business owners and companies should always be thinking about when they're paying anything for marketing work, is the ROI, the return on this investment.
Well, also the execution of it, because you can design something great and give all these amazing tools, but it just might not be the kind of company that can execute it or enforce it internally. So sometimes the best strategy is the easiest strategy for their team to actually adopt. And it might not be my favorite, and it might not be what like the potential is, but that's where that slow growth matters. Because as long as you start trusting me, I can start like getting in a little bit more every time. And I can start working on you on a more deep strategy, but at first there's no reason to throw the whole like library at
Yeah.
you of stuff.
Yeah, 100%. So, kind of transitioning a little bit here, Juana, what are some of your biggest wins, I guess? If you have any examples that you'd like to talk about, or not specific clients or certain industries, talk about some of your biggest wins at your agency.
Yeah, I would say the ones I'm most proud of, so not naming specific clients, but the ones I'm most proud of are the ones that started small and grew to so much more. Like they called us for something very small, and now like I get invited to their Christmas parties. People think I work there because I'm there so much. And we're working on, maybe we started with something in promo, and now we're working on event strategies that they never even thought they needed or should have. Now I'm working with all different segments of their business, whether it's like different employees in it, like HR and executive team and business development. But so my biggest ones are those, the ones that I've been able to grow from something small into something big that continues to be recurring, and they really trust me. Those are sometimes a slow burn, and they're not always the most fun. They're the most rewarding long term. We've had some really cool wins where I'm proud of getting that call that you don't expect and being able to turn something around that just blows their mind away. I have a client who I won over because their event planner dropped them at the last hour. We came in to help them plan what was left of planning, which was everything. Then they had an outdoor venue, and there was basically a hurricane coming that day. So we planned their entire event in literally a day and a half. I mean, just completely turned the whole thing around. Love that. Like, I'm proud of that. And they trusted me and became a longtime client. I have another one kind of similar. They needed to turn something around in about 2 weeks. We did the whole thing in 2 weeks. It was a brand activation for a big company, and they were so grateful. And I think that's a big part of our secret sauce is we are not afraid of last minute. Like, we work well under pressure. We get it done. I have great relationships, so I call in a lot of favors. But
A lot of people can't do that from experience.
Yes, no, they can't. And I, not only can we, but we thrive in it. So if you have lots, I mean, it's not that I need an anxiety attack every day, but if you have last minute things, we'll take it.
Especially in the event space, when you have a checklist of this needs to happen, this needs to happen, this needs to happen, this one by one at a certain time. When that gets thrown off, you'd be shocked, as you've probably seen, how that throws off many people, and they spiral and the whole thing just goes out of whack.
Oh, it's my favorite. I thrive in that chaos.
Yeah. So in that kind of the similar fashion here, let's talk about quacks in your space. Because
Yeah.
in marketing quacks podcast fashion, we always like to talk about, the gimmicks and the people in our industry who kind of ruin it and give it a bad rep.
Yeah.
What is an example, without naming any names of companies or people, that you've seen as a quack in your industry?
So, one thing that I can't stand, and I always win over, right? And this is not really a trick or a gimmick, but when people say it can't be done, and I see it on the event side and the promo side, and less so on the design side, right? But people like to just put themselves in a box, and they'll be like, oh, I don't know that we can do that, I don't think we can do that, and they try to push their agenda and what they want to work on and what works for them. And I'm like, that's bullshit, right? Like, challenge me, I will find a way. There's no way you will ever hear from me that something cannot be done. Okay.
Especially with AI.
Well, especially with AI, and I mean, just in general, like, people just don't want to make that extra effort. So they say it can't, when it's really just, I won't. Right. So that drives
Correct.
me crazy, but please keep doing it, guys, because I'm going to keep winning your business. One thing that I would think, because I was trying to think of this, like, what's a trick or gimmick? Another thing that drives me crazy is how some companies make small things be big and important when they're not, right? And so, like, if you work with a client that just had one of those companies, they just they're afraid to ask for something, or they think something will just take so much time or be so monumental, when I'm like, that is no big deal. But why do companies do that? Because they want to justify their paycheck, and they're not driving value in another way. I will never make something seem overly important and time consuming and big when it's not, because I want you to know that we'll get it done. Just come hit me with the next thing. Challenge me more.
A lot of it is ego too. So I appreciate you bringing that up, where you have, whether it's nepotism or just ego in general at a company, where someone thinks that their idea is the best idea in the room and someone else is too scared to bring up their point or any conflicting point. So I appreciate you bringing that up. I see that happen all the time.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that's one aspect of it too. And the other aspect of it is, like, and you see it a lot in digital marketing. Something takes about 5 seconds to do, but it takes 2 weeks to turn it around. And they act like it takes an army of people and like a whole
Classic agency move.
classic agency move. And I'm like, no, how about this? How about I get it done? We'll get it done fast. We'll go have drinks, have fun, and not pretend that this took mountains to move. So that's definitely, to me, a marketing quack thing. And even on the promo side. So on the promo side, again, we're a distributor, so we're the middleman between suppliers and the end user. And I'll get some customers, and I love these customers because I get to win them. But I'll get customers call me, and they're like, "Hey, do you think it would be possible to get these shirts from you, or this gift item, whatever? It's, I know it's a fast turnaround, but do you think we can get it in February?" And I'm like, it's December. Like, yeah, of course. What? Yes, of course. I'm like, I was waiting for you to ask for it in 2 days. But again, it's like, these companies just are not on top of their shit, and their things take so long. So they've educated their clients that everything is this monumental task that takes a lot of time.
It's a lot of, you don't know what you don't know. And a lot of these older companies have no idea how fast the internet is expanding. And now with AI, like Spreadshirt is the example that I think of when you just talked about that. I could create a logo in 10 seconds with AI, upload it to Spreadshirt, and I could have shirts next week. Like, people just can't comprehend that.
No, they can't. But ultimately, there are things. I mean, there's you have to get things in from China that take longer. But I'm going to tell you that yes, we can turn it around in a week, but there's limitations. But if you need something that you don't want any limitations, yeah, let's give it 2 months. But I can still probably get it to you a little bit faster. But the problem is, people just don't answer their emails or pick up the phone.
Yeah.
They're just not
So
capable.
So one thing I'm curious about in particular is, because I'm a big AI guy, you know this just from working with me. How is AI impacting what you do from a branding perspective? Like, I can go generate an image with Dolly 3 or using all these other AI tools to create logos, graphics, et cetera, et cetera. What is your response to why someone should use you versus an AI tool that I can spin up in, a minute, 5 minutes, et cetera?
Yeah. A few reasons. So if we're speaking of branding specifically, I'm actually working on a project right now where it's the first time I'm really utilizing AI to bring in my
What's exactly with AI when you say you're utilizing AI?
imagery.
Okay.
AI imagery. So there's designers who are very good because they're artists and they charge for that talent, right? And they can create custom illustrations and custom art. And I can't do that. So when I go into a branding job, I think of what we're trying to accomplish and I think of the identity of the brand that I'm trying to get to. And I have that in mind. And then I can do basic design, and anything outside of basic design, I can reach out to various artists that I use and get exactly what I need. What AI has done has eliminated a little bit of that illustrative need. And so right now I'm working on something that one of the concepts I'm presenting is I want to do a vintage Italian poster, Mediterranean poster style. So that would require me to find an illustrator that can do that style. But instead, now I can go into Adobe Firefly and I can type in exactly the imagery that I want, and it's going to spit it out. Now, I can take that imagery and I can manipulate it. I can manipulate it to change colors. I can manipulate it to really be on brand for you. It takes a lot of practice, as you probably know, but the common person may not know. The prompts that you give AI take work. You really have to be specific, and there's a lot of trial and error, and it takes a lot of time. So you can go and create your own thing in AI, but as soon as you need that logo to be editable because you need to put it on a t-shirt or you need to print it on something or laser etch it somewhere, as soon as you need various forms of it, whether like light background or dark background or whatever, now you have this static image that you can't do anything with. And so unless you go to someone who helps you create your brand identity and gives you a suite of branding assets that you can work with, you're stuck. So it's kind of like, you can do it. If you're just starting a business and you don't have a budget, do it. Of course. Like, that's the
Yeah,
thing to do.
for sure. It's just funny because you have those people on one side that are like, well, I'll just use AI. Why would I ever pay money to do something? But those same people who say that don't ever know how to prompt AI or know what correct tools to use or know that they can export a Dolly image or a Firefly image, upload it to Canva, upload it to Photoshop, etc., and make those tweets. The average person saying that has no idea or strategy behind just using AI. So I appreciate you bringing that up for sure. But that's kind of it. Oana, appreciate you hopping on the podcast this week. And what are some final notes that you have for listeners, whether it's with branding, design work, event planning, or just any final tips that you have for anyone listening?
Yeah, I think that the most important thing in this industry is exposure, right? Like, the more exposure you have to things, the better an eye you're going to have and the more familiarity with the tools you're going to have in general, right? Like, just educate yourself. But if you're looking to hire someone, if they're doing events and experiences for you, have they actually gone to the type of events that you're wanting them to plan? Like, do they know the people? Do they run in a circle with the people that you are actually targeting to know what those people are needing and want? Like, ask yourself those questions. Is it a well-exposed individual, well-traveled, well-cultured, well-attended? When it comes to that, if it comes to branding and design, like, not only how much have they worked on, but like, do they have a passion for that? Do they geek out over packaging? Do they save, pictures of things they love? Like, look beyond the immediate portfolio even, and just look into the person. Because I mean, you and Daniel do this podcast, right? Well, to me, I mean, you guys go so deep in rabbit holes and geek out over things that you maybe even haven't done yet with your customers. But to me, I want you to work on my stuff, right? Because you are so deep geeking into this stuff that you know what's going on. And same thing for promo, same thing for events, same thing for design. Like, don't just look at the immediate website and the immediate portfolio. Look at the person. Because I want to work with someone who's obsessed. I want to work with someone who's highly exposed and who's constantly self-educating. And if you don't, then you're hiring a quack.
Yep, I love it. And that's great advice too at the very beginning when you talked about hire someone with a strategy. Don't just hire some branding company to design stuff. Make sure they have a strategy in mind too to get the most out of it. So that's a big takeaway I had from this episode. So thanks again everyone for listening, or if you're watching on YouTube. Again, this is Ryan with the Marketing Quacks podcast. Thank you so much, Oana, for hopping on, and I hope you all have a great day.